Alright guys, welcome to the next video. In this video, I will be showing you guys how to sew on the cuffs to your sleeves. Before we do that, you do need to add the pleats to the end of your sleeve. So at this point, your sleeves should be sewn, so don't be confused by my open sleeve here. I just left it open because it's easier to show you guys how to do the pleats with it open rather than closed. But yours will look like this. So you'll have to kind of flatten out your sleeve when you're adding the pleats. So all you want to do is I'm lining up where my placket is. And remember, the sleeve pattern piece is of the right sleeve. So you'll need to reflect everything when adding the pleats on your left sleeve. So I'm just lining up my placket with the line for the placket. And then all I want to do is draw in the lines for my pleats. And this is very similar to the pleats on the back of the shirt, for those of you that included those. So all they want me to do is take from my first notch and fold my fabric or pleat it to the second notch, and then the third notch to the fourth. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do that. And pin those little pleats in place. This is a small pleat, but it just allows for there to be more room at the cuff, but the cuff, or more room in the arm, in the sleeve, with the cuff still being small, because you don't want a loose cuff on a button down. It looks odd. So I'm gonna iron my pleats in place a little bit. I know right now you might be like, oh my god, I don't want that, it looks so pronounced, but you won't even notice it because it'll hang at the back of the arm. So once you have your pleats in place, you're just gonna baste 1/4 inch away from the edge of the shirt so that those are sewn down. And then you'll do the same thing on the other side. Just remember, on this side, you're gonna be folding the opposite direction. So make sure that you do reflect that image. So I'm gonna go ahead and baste my pleats. And next up, I'll show you guys how to make the cuffs. All right. Okay guys, so next you need the cuff pattern piece, and that's the one you guys made yourself. If you don't have it, if you go into Canvas and go into modules and click on the PDF 121 blouse cutting and sewing instructions, it'll give you the dimensions you need for the cuffs of each size shirt. I'm doing a large, so my cuffs are a little bigger. If you forgot to make the pattern piece, you can easily, and don't have pattern paper, you can easily make it out of just scrap paper, printer paper. It doesn't have to be special because they're pretty easy measurements, and it's just a rectangle. You should have 4 cuff pieces because you're gonna want to have 2 pieces per cuff. And the first thing we're gonna do is just put these right sides together and then pin. So once you wanna pin the entire cuff together, and then you're just gonna sew 5/8 around the cuff in a U shape, leaving one end open to attach that end to your sleeve. All right guys, so as I mentioned, you should have sewed 5/8 around your entire cuff, right sides together, aside from one long edge. So once you've done this, and this is actually gonna be, attaching the cuff to the sleeve is essentially the same exact process we use to attach the collar excuse me, to the neck opening. So before we attach it and turn this right side out, again, you just want to miter your corners so that you'll get nice, clean points at the corners of your cuffs. And then you want to go ahead and iron open those seam allowances as well so that you get a clean cuff. I should be doing a better job ironing, but for this tutorial, well, one, I don't want to take too much time, but also if I hold this iron down too much, I'll melt my tablecloth. So you guys should be more thoroughly ironing. I'm gonna go back and make this better later. So once you've done that, you can turn your cuff right side out, take something pointed and get that corner tip. Just be, if you're using shears like I am, be extra careful to not rip a hole in the cuff. Okay, and then you'll want to iron that again from the outside. And this is exactly why I say you need to do a good job. That does not look nice. Nobody wants a shirt with puffy seams that look like a butt crack. Sorry, guys. Okay, so next up, once you have a cuff that looks nicer than this, you're gonna take your sleeve, and the cuffs are identical, so it doesn't matter which one goes on what. Again, you should have your pleats basted in place, and you just want to go ahead and you're going to line up right sides together, the end of your cuff with that edge of the placket. Pin that in place. We're only pinning one side of the cuff. So I'm only pinning this inner layer of the cuff because that's what I'm gonna sew. I'm not gonna sew this one on because otherwise we'd have a ton of exposed seam allowance. So you wanna just go around around the sleeve opening and pin your cuff in place until you get to the other end and pin the two edges together. If they are not a perfect match, mine seem like they will be, you'll need to do a little bit of fabric easing. If you have a huge problem, you could always make your pleats larger or add a third pleat in there. You could even add gather stitches in there if you'd prefer to have a gather than pleating. So once this is attached, okay, so once you have the one side of your cuff pinned to that right side of your sleeve, you're gonna want to, from edge to edge, sew a plain seam with a 5/8 seam allowance and 2.5 stitching and back stitching at each edge. So this will be attached. Once this is attached, you're gonna go ahead and from the inside, you want to cover up this seam allowance by ironing and folding your other cuff edge under about 5/8, matching it up with the attachment seam and pinning it in place. So you'll do that across the entire thing so that from the outside and the inside, the cuff looks nice and finished, except yours will not be puffy and ugly because you'll have done an excellent job ironing it. So once you have that pinned in place, you just want to go to the iron and you're just going to edge stitch about a 1/4 inch or whatever seam allowance or edge stitching, top stitching, what you've been using around the whole thing. So this will make it so that one, your cuff is less puffy and it looks finished and it matches the edge stitching everywhere else on your shirt. But it'll also close off all of the raw edges from your sleeve. So go ahead and do that. I know I didn't include all the sewing, so once again, feel free to reach out if you guys have any questions, and give that a good pressing when you're done. And now you should have 2 complete sleeves with plackets, pleats, and cuffs. I will see you guys in the next tutorial. Thank you.